All right, so this is part two of Daniel Tay's ADCC run at Kuwait. And let me just say, this is an absolutely crazy match and definitely a very classic Daniel Tay barn burner. So they start up, and something that stands out to me right away is that Danny is going for a right handed wrist grip and a left handed collar tie, which is inverted from his usual game plan. So that's something that stood out to me immediately. They continue hand fighting, and Danny looks like he finds an opportunistic takedown and he shoots for it. Unfortunately, because there was not much setup for it, Henry is able to pull him down into a front headlock, and he ends up with an underhook front headlock as well, which makes it even harder to escape. They consolidate the position for a while here, and I think it's mostly Henry taking his time to look for the back because, like I said, once they get that underhook front headlock, it's very difficult for the bottom player to actually get any movement going, and you kind of rely for the on the top player initiating an attack before you can escape. And you can see as soon as Henry transitions to that regular front headlock, Danny's able to get an arm drag grip and start escaping the position. Which actually starts a big scramble because as Danny disconnects, he shoots right back in to a single leg, to which Henry sprawls and Danny gets an underhook and tries to pull bottom half guard, but then Henry backsteps straight into a cross ashi. Danny rolls through, frees his knee line, disconnects, and comes on top. They go out of bounds, and the ref resets them in like an open hand body lock position. Danny is able to maintain pressure, and it looks like he's starting to work himself back into that shoulder pin slash inside camping position, which he was able to display on his last match. Danny continues to bear down, looking to get that foot pin or look to get that hip post, but Henry's doing a good job of maintaining a good reverse de la Hiva as well as hand fighting that top hand, making sure that he's able to get his lasso or knee shield in at all times. Danny then cuts an angle to his left and hits a beautiful reverse leg drag, very reminiscent of Leandro Lo, and starts uh, putting pressure, threatening to get to side control. Henry is able to get his legs back in, but Danny's able to keep them pinned together, ending up in a good folding pass position. He's then able to beat the top knee and get a crossface, and maybe is a little bit over eager to jump to the back because Henry's able to get his hook back in and off bounce him a little bit, but it doesn't matter because Danny slips right out of it and gets back exposure anyways. Henry continues to fight as Danny slowly looks to transition to knee on belly, but Henry continues fighting and is eventually able to get his knees back in front and kick Danny off. Danny stays engaged though and uses Henry's lasso to threaten a heel hook, and when Henry retracts his leg, Danny simply goes right back into that inside camping position he's been working all tournament. He stays heavy here on top from an arm wave position and slowly look for his opportunity to upgrade his grips to a collar tie or an underhook, and finally he finds that underhook and shin slices past the guard. He uses that to get to front headlock, and as Henry looks to build height, then he looks to transition to the back, which starts another crazy scramble. They go off screen, but somehow whenever they come back on screen, Henry is on Danny's back, so I'm not sure what happened there. They both continue to fight for hip height, and Danny is able to come on top and secure a front headlock. He looks to set up a short strangle right away, but Henry's doing a good job of keeping his hands far apart and not letting his shoulder touch his neck. They stay in this position for a bit, but as Henry looks to start circling off, then he's able to catch a scoop on his leg, and Matt returns him to top side control. But Henry's able to turtle back immediately, and they get right back into the same position they've been fighting from. Then Danny looks to start circling to the back, but Henry does a beautiful job of rolling through and ends up in a Nashigorami. Danny builds height, but Henry is able to transition to a full X guard and starts wrestling up into a single leg. He then jumps hooks and is able to secure Danny's back. Danny hands fights well to prevent the strangle and he looks to keep escaping, but it's just so hard to escape once somebody gets to your back in this rule set, especially if they lock up a body triangle. Nonetheless, Danny continues to try and escape, and slowly he's able to bring the locking leg of the body triangle across his body, which allows him to start turning into Henry, but Henry comes on top first, and they end up in mount. Danny is eventually able to get his hands on the hips and buck Henry off, but Henry follows the buck off well and transitions to front headlock. Danny sits to a coyote guard or the ironically named real deep half guard, but he is able to hit an old school sweep, so I guess that guard is not completely useless. He gets to chest half guard and starts bearing down pressure, and then starts walking his legs to the right and hip switches in order to pass the guard. But unfortunately, he overcommits with his pressure, so when Henry goes to turtle, Henry is able to solidify a front headlock. Danny immediately pulls Coyote Guard again and starts looking for that old school sweep again, and he eventually is able to get it as soon as he controls that secondary foot. Henry turns to his knees, and Danny is able to get behind him in top turtle position. Danny needs to score here. I don't know how many points he's down, but I would guess at least four by my count. So you can definitely tell that there's a sense of urgency when Danny is looking for the hooks here. But he rushes a little bit and steps in between Henry's legs, which allows him to roll into cross Ashy once again. Henry lets go of the reaping leg, opting to disconnect as Danny tries to counter from 50-50, and from here they both kind of struggle from a double seated position and fight for top position once again. They're both able to get back to their feet, and now you can really see that Danny is struggling to make his points back, but Henry just wants to hand fight and ride out the victory, which leads to Danny taking a shot without setup, ending up in bottom front headlock once again. Henry then is able to get an underhook and run Danny down into a bottom half guard. Now Danny is doing everything he can to try and get back up to his feet, but as Henry pressures to keep him down, Danny is able to hit like a weird funky sweep, butterfly like type sweep, and ends up in top position. He pressures right away, but Henry is able to lock a close guard, and with less than a minute left, this is a very dire situation to work yourself out of. But this is Daniel Tay we're talking about, and if there's anybody that can bring back a last second win, it's him. So he gets working on that close guard and is able to open it in a record time. He gets a knee in the middle, opens the guard, cuts an angle right away, and blasts past Henry's guard, ending up in a front headlock. He gets 100% sweep and looks to solidify side control as time runs out. Henry wins, and we are left with another barn burner Daniel Tay classic. Very close match that could have gone either way, and that's my analysis of Daniel Tay's silver medal performance at ADCC Kuwait, and thank you so much to Danny for allowing me to make this commentary. Like, share, subscribe, and put it up on your story, and I'll see you next time.